So if you're new in these parts, we talk a lot on our channel about digestion and gallstones and how digestion might change after the gallbladder is removed and stuff like that. So I've been getting a lot of emails and comments from people asking me to talk a little bit about biliary dyskinesia or a low functioning gallbladder. So we're going to dig into that in this video, and I kind of wonder if this is going to bother you, if it actually makes a little bit of sense. Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So with biliary dyskinesia, a person might see a lot of the same symptoms that somebody might see if they had gallstones. So if you have some kind of stone blocking one of these biliary ducts or the gallbladder duct here from moving, and all that bile gets backed up and that pressure, it can really create a lot of pain, and a lot of other symptoms can come along with that gallstone blocking that flow. But when they run tests and they look at the person and they say, oh, well, you don't have any gallstones, but you're still having all these problems, then you're not in that gallstone category. Then you get a fancier name. You get biliary dyskinesia. And I don't know, that sounds like something you would buy at like an art fair from a girl named Rainbow, but it's nice. And or maybe they'll say you have a low functioning gallbladder, and if you're the gallbladder, that's just kind of hurtful, but that's kind of like what they call it, so that's what we're going to go with. And basically, the only option that you can see when you look up this stuff in most cases is, oh, we're going to yank out your gallbladder, and that's just kind of how it goes. And I'll put a link to some papers below that kind of indicate that these are the only options, and a lot of these do come from gallbladder surgeons that are saying that's all you got, sorry about your luck, that'll be $17,000. I don't know if that matters to you, but that seems to be the majority of the opinion out there, is that when these problems are coming about and the gallbladder isn't working, a lot of people will get relief if we just yank that out. So that's really the main option that people are looking at. So when we're looking at what causes this, well, that's not really known. So this really isn't going so great, but that's kind of how they view it, is that we don't really know what's happening. And is there some kind of hormonal signal that's being problematic, some nerves or something that's making the muscles not work correctly? Something is making this not function the way that it's supposed to, but we don't know what that is. So since it is clearly unknown why this happens, and that's a fact, let's just talk in this video about the possibilities. What could make that happen? And let's just see, does that make any sense? So we're just going to look at possible things that could be creating this problem where the gallbladder is not working the way that it's supposed to work. And one thing that we have to look at is sludge when it comes to the bile. Bile is this soapy substance that's made in the liver, and then it's sent down these biliary pathways to get stored in the gallbladder. And that's the gallbladder's job, is to store that bile and concentrate it so that a small amount of that bile can be more effective in helping us with the digestive processes that bile is in charge of helping with. It can help a lot of things. It kind of neutralizes acids that are leaving the stomach. Bile helps us emulsify our dietary fats so that we can use those dietary fats, and so we can access fat-soluble vitamins like A, E, D, and K. So all that stuff is really important. But what we understand when we look at this paper that I'll put a link to in the description below from the Cleveland Clinic, they say, well, there's issues like obesity and inflammation that can thicken up that bile so that it doesn't quite flow correctly. And this article that I was reading says, well, what if this is what happens to these gallstones, is it's bile becoming too thick, and eventually the gallbladder concentrates it into these stones that form and create these blockages. But this paper said, what if this dyskinesia is just about this bile becoming too thick to flow correctly, but it hasn't yet got to the point where it's formed into stones? Maybe this is just something that happens a little bit earlier. So what if this is right? The medical world likes to blame organs a lot. Like, this organ isn't working, it must be the organ's fault, stupid organ. But what if this makes sense, that the bile has become too thick and sticky for it to move through there? What if the gallbladder's like, hey, I'm trying to push it through, it's like tar in here. It won't move out, I'm doing the best I can. So maybe it's not the gallbladder's fault. Maybe the bile has become too thick and sticky to flow, and then it's not moving as much as it would. And the gallbladder's job, remember, is to concentrate that bile. So it doesn't have an off switch for its concentration job that it's supposed to do. So if bile isn't flowing as well and more of it is staying in that gallbladder, the gallbladder will continue to concentrate it until it concentrates into sludge and doesn't move very well, or eventually into stones, and now the person is creating new cuss words that they didn't even know they knew because of the pain that that gallbladder attack is creating from a stone blocking that. So to me, that would make a little bit more sense. So the Cleveland Clinic thought that obesity and inflammation are things that can cause this bile to become too thick and sticky to flow correctly. And I'll also put some links in the description below that kind of give you ideas about estrogen and grains and what we call a catabolic imbalance, have the ability to thicken up the bile. So there's a lot of other things in our life that have the ability to thicken up that bile for some folks. And maybe they have the ability to get that train going where now the bile's a little bit thicker, it's not quite flowing as well, maybe not as much is leaving the gallbladder, and more of it is staying in there and getting concentrated more and more over time, leading to that sludge. And one of the main jobs of the gallbladder is to help neutralize the acids that leave the stomach. So when we eat food, our stomach is supposed to make hydrochloric acid, or HCl, and that helps us acidify that food so that we can break the food down and get the nutrients out of that food. It's kind of important. So once it's acidified, it leaves the stomach and comes down into this area called the duodenum. Some people call it a duodenum. Trust me, it's more fun to say duodenum. But when it comes into this duodenum, that's what triggers the gallbladder to squirt this alkaline bile to come down and help neutralize those acids. Now there's bicarb and stuff that comes from the pancreas too, but this alkaline bile, being an opposite pH of this acidic stuff in the stomach, is really what helps neutralize those acids, and it can kind of create this sizzle of the opposite pHs colliding and helping us bust all the nutrition out of that food so that we can get the nutrients from the food that we're eating. That's a very important job of the gallbladder. But what if this is the case? What if a person is not making enough stomach acid? What if they're not acidifying their food correctly? It's very common. There's millions of people every day who turn off their stomach acid on purpose. They're doing it every day. But there's a lot of other people who are not making enough stomach acid and they don't even know it for a wide variety of reasons. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in the body that will restrict its ability to make that stomach acid. Well, if this food isn't getting acidified correctly, then when it leaves the stomach, there's no acidity there to trigger the gallbladder to do its job. You can find this information in an encyclopedia. You can be in the 4th grade reading about this in an encyclopedia and go like, oh yeah, this is how the digestive process works. This gets acidified, it leaves, and that's what triggers the gallbladder to squirt the alkaline bile down there. So this is not new information that I found in a coloring book. This is something that we understand that happens. So if someone isn't making enough stomach acid to trigger this alkaline bile to come down and neutralize it, then the bile's not moving, it's staying in there. And what do we know it's going to do? It's going to concentrate it more. It's going to concentrate it into sludge and eventually maybe even stones. But maybe a person can be in that area where it's so sludgy that it just can't move and everything's getting backed up and creating the same type of symptoms that would come if a stone was blocking it from moving. So what if the real cause of this is just triggers that aren't happening correctly? They're not being told, hey, I need to come down here. You know, another thing that can trigger bile flow is to eat dietary fats. That bile helps us emulsify those dietary fats. A lot of people run from fat because they're eating a low-fat diet like we were told to do in the 80s. But, you know, maybe they haven't heard that we don't wear parachute pants and we're not afraid of dietary fat anymore. But a lot of people are still eating that way. So there's a lot of reasons that these triggers are not being triggered correctly, and the bile has the ability to stay in the gallbladder and thicken up until it's just not moving. And now everybody's blaming the gallbladder. Stupid gallbladder, we're going to yank you out and throw you in the trash. But maybe it's not the gallbladder's fault. Maybe a person could take steps to thin that bile out so that it would flow correctly, and all of a sudden the gallbladder is doing its job again. Wouldn't that be something? So even though this is not the cause of dyskinesia, and maybe the Cleveland Clinic is just being silly in this article that we're reading, what a person could do is they could look at, do I have issues? Are there other signs that are showing that maybe bile is not flowing correctly? Or maybe I don't have enough stomach acid to trigger that bile to flow correctly. We'll put a link in the description below for our videos for 10 signs of poor bile flow and 10 signs of low stomach acid. And you can check those out and see, oh, I have a lot of signs for this, and maybe I need to look into this a little bit more. If you do find that you need to improve digestion, my book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, chapters 3 and 4, kind of go over figuring out which aspects of digestion are not working correctly and what steps can I take to improve those. And the book is available on Amazon, but I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can get the whole thing totally for free. And if you looked at this and you're like, wow, I know that I have a lot of signs of my bile not flowing correctly, you could jump over right now and check out our video on 5 steps to improve bile flow so you can get some insights into things that you might be able to do to improve that and see, does my bile improve? And if it does it improve these symptoms as well? I can't wait to hear about your results.